Jeremy Walsh, and I'm the Director of Support, Training, and Documentation for BNI Connect. And I'd like to welcome everybody to the webinar today. Today's webinar is on the member tools and reports. Basically, we're going to go a little bit deeper into BNI Connect, aside from just filling out your profile and passing online referrals and all of the things that we do on a daily or a weekly basis in BNI Connect. I wanted to go into some of the other functions behind the scenes that you may or may not have clicked on in the past. So things like being able to get all the email addresses so that you can send an email out to your chapter, or to be able to send a visitor an invitation to your chapter, or looking at some of the reports that really show you how well you're performing in your chapter and how well the chapter might be performing as a whole. Today's webinar is being recorded. All of the webinars are recorded and they are made available afterwards. Most of them are available up on our YouTube site. And the YouTube site is youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. And this has all of the videos up there, including some that are not webinars, including a couple of great messages from Dr. Meisner himself about BNI Connect and other topics of interest. You can also find all of the recorded webinars and all of our documentation available on the support site. To get to the support site, click on the question mark here in BNI Connect. That will take you over to our support site. And if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see a training section. In this training section, you'll see pretty much everything that we're going to talk about today is documented here with nice walkthroughs and visual guides for everything. And you can also find all the recorded webinars broken out month by month here in the webinars section. Of course, you're always welcome to leave suggestions and enhancement requests as well up on the support site. But let's get back to the system. Also, by the way, this is a live webinar, so if you have any questions as we're going through, please do absolutely ask the questions. You can either type those questions into the question panel, and we would be absolutely thrilled to answer those questions as we're going through. We also will leave time at the end for questions. The webinar is scheduled for about 30 minutes of content, but I am always happy to stay on these calls until all of your questions are answered. If you do have a microphone on your computer or you're dialed in via telephone, if you raise your hand, I can also unmute your microphone and you can speak your question. Okay, so let's take a look at the tools and reports here in BNI Connect. So you'll notice that this is our home page. This is where we normally log in. This is the first thing that we see. Now, most of the things here are stuff that you'll do on a regular basis. So you can go in and you can, let's say, enter all of your online slips, enter the thank you for closed business, referrals, one-to-ones, and CEUs. You can also view all of the things that you've entered online through the My Reports, and even use the referral tracking sheet to go through and keep track of the referrals that you receive in BNI. On the left-hand side, you'll see some other menus depending on what level you are in BNI, whether or not you're just a chapter member. If you happen to be a director, an executive director, or regional administrator, you'll see some or all of these different functions over on the left, but these are shortcut menus to various things within the system, and I'll get back to this in a little while. But the first thing I wanted to show you was up here at the top, you'll also notice some other menu items. Now again, depending on what your roles are in BNI Connect, you may see certain of these menu items and not others. For example, if you are in a chapter, you may only see the networks, operations, and report menus. If you're a chapter webmaster, you might also see the tools menu. What we're going to be concentrating on today is the operations and the reports options here. So the way I look at these is usually this comes down to operations are things that you want to do in the system. So if you want to send an email, for example, or you want to assign a mentor if you're a mentoring coordinator or something like that, things that you're going to function, to operate. Reports are where we're going to pull the data back out of the system. So things like POMS reports and roster reports, and we'll go over those in a minute as well. The first things I'm going to show you are under this operations menu. So if we click on the operations, you'll see that there's chapter. So you go to operations chapter. And let me get back over to, I'm going to move over to my test region here. Actually, let me move over to my own region and my own chapter. I am actually a member here in Rhode Island, so I am an active user as well as supporting BNI Connect. Okay, so if I go down and I look at the Operations Chapter menu, what we'll see is a bunch of different options here. Now again, going through this, if you are a visitor host, you might see the Manage Visitor option. If you're a president or a secretary-treasurer, you might see the Meeting Management. But the thing I wanted to show you here is under the Create Email. And everybody should have access to this particular function. You'll see that there's 3 options under Create Email. Email My Chapter, Email Visitor Invitation, and Email Chapter Visitors. I'm going to show you what each of these do because I find them extremely helpful. The first one is the Email My Chapter. Now, I'm also a chapter president, and one thing that I've always found frustrating, because I've been a chapter president before, I've been in BNI for about coming up on 12 years now, but it was always really hard to communicate with the rest of my chapter. If I needed to email them about anything or maybe remind them of an upcoming event or something, I used to have to go through my email and pretty much find the last group email that was sent out and hope that it had all of the members on it. And a lot of times there'd be new members that have come, or there might be members that have left that shouldn't be getting the email anymore because they've left the chapter. This makes it much easier. All you do is click on Email My Chapter, and all of the email addresses will pop up for you to be able to send them an email. Now, all you need to do is highlight them, or if you're a keyboard person, hit Control-A on your keyboard, and then hit Control-C on your keyboard, or right-click and choose Copy. Start a new email in whatever email program you use. Now, I highly recommend putting things into the BCC line, and that way when people respond to this, it doesn't go back to everybody necessarily, which causes a lot of email traffic. And type out your email and send it. And then this email would go to all of the members of my chapter. It's as easy as that. Again, it makes communicating with your chapter much, much easier. Now, the second option on this list is the Email Visitor Invitation. And this is another great one to use when you'd like to invite somebody to your chapter. Now, again, this is something that I always found frustrating as a member. Let's say I go to a networking event. Maybe it's a Chamber of Commerce meeting, a First Friday coffee, or an event at another fellow business person's place of business, and I meet some people that I'd like to invite to my chapter. Well, trying to type out that email, oh yeah, we meet here, and we meet on this day, and oh, here's the address. Hold on, I need to look up the address on Google, and you know, you're trying to struggle to say things about BNI, but not freak anybody out because you don't want to say too much about BNI, but you want to give them an idea of what it is. This takes all of that right out of the picture, and all you need to do is click a few buttons. To do that, click on Email Visitor Invitation. All you need to do is fill out a couple of lines here. So let's say Mr. John Smith from Smith Co. and their email address. Now, I'm going to put my own email address in here because I'm going to send one to myself so you can see what it looks like. If you'd like to try this out, you can send a test one to yourself as well. One thing to note is this does not store the email addresses anywhere. All it is a quick and easy way to send out a templated email that you know has the right information in it. Now, you can choose to, if you'd like to, add a personal message. The personal message will be the first paragraph of the email. So I could say something like, you know, it was great to meet you at the chamber event. I look forward to seeing you at my BNI meeting this week. And I click Send. Now, all this does is just takes that information and inserts it into an email that immediately gets sent out by the system. And I did receive it already. Here's the email. You can see that it does say that it's coming from me, even though it is coming from a BNI Connect address. It has an invitation line in it. It has a nice graphic in here. If anybody's been around BNI for a while, you'll remember the postcard campaigns that used to go out. This is actually the same graphic as from the postcard campaigns. It says, Dear John. In the United States, we are a little bit more informal and we use the first name. In other countries, it might use a combination of the full name or a Dear Mr. Smith. It has my personal message here. It was great to meet you at the chamber event. And then the rest of this is filled out automatically. So it has the name of my chapter, where we meet, the address of where we meet, and the day and time of the meeting. It also goes, just very quickly, a couple of sentences about BNI, and then a call to action. Please let me know if you plan to attend. It's signed from you, and if they reply to this, it will be sent to your email address. So it's a great way to just very quickly invite people to your next BNI meeting. Now, I see a couple of questions up here. Let me just take a look at these questions quick. I see Carol just said, awesome. Thank you, Carol. Trish said, for chapter emails, do you need to put someone in the to, or do you recommend putting yourself in? Well, you will be included in that list. So let me just go back to that real quick. And if I do an email my chapter, I should see my name here in this list. So you will be CC'd on that by default. When it comes to blind carbon copies, what it does is it strips out all the other addresses as it's going. You don't need to put anybody in the to address. If you like it for aesthetic reasons, you're more than welcome to do so, but there's no need to actually do that. So hopefully that answers that question, Trish. And Trish says, oh, nice graphic. Are areas now not using the postcard drip process and now using the invitation email with the graphic instead? Trish, that is completely up to the various regions. Some prefer paper, some prefer email. I don't see anything wrong personally with using both. There's appropriate times to use physical mail and there's appropriate times to use email. I would say that this particular function works really well when it's a warmed up introduction. I wouldn't use this as a means of just sending out a bunch of cold calls, so to speak, via email. I would make sure that the person is expecting an email from you. This just takes the pain out of having to create one from scratch. So hopefully that answers your question, Trish. Nick says, this might be off topic and I'm new to BNI and BNI Connect. When I enter my one-to-ones, who reads them? Is that a tool for me to keep up with my meetings? Nick, if you don't mind, I'm going to put that one on hold till the bottom of the hour, and we'll come back to that question, and I'll be happy to go through that with you. Nathan says, I met someone yesterday at Starbucks that I'll use this visitor invite for. Excellent. Hey, Nathan, do me a favor. If it works out for you, if you can send me an email, support@bniconnect.com, I would love to hear about it and hear that this tool worked or didn't work or how it worked out for you. All right. So any other questions on that email my chapter or email visitor invitation? All right. There's one more selection in here, and that is email chapter visitors. Now, the email chapter visitors, this works in conjunction with when your chapter is adding visitors into your chapter's visitor database. One thing you may or may not know is that your visitor hosts should be adding your visitors into BNI Connect. And the benefits of this are that it helps with calculating conversion ratios, but it also means that you can get back in touch with visitors very easily. So aside from just getting your sign-in sheet at your chapter meeting, this makes it easy to go back and email those visitors. You can send postcards to their addresses. You can run reports on the visitors, all sorts of things. Now, assuming that you are putting the visitors into the system, you can easily go back and email them. So let's say that you were having a stack day in your chapter. For those of you that don't know what a stack day is when you concentrate on, let's say, a profession or two professions or a specific contact sphere, and you want to invite, let's say, a whole bunch of plumbers and electricians to help with your trades contact sphere. Why stack days are good is because usually when you have 2, 3, or 4 plumbers in the room, they might just compete for that seat. So let's take a look at the email chapter visitors. Now what this does is it allows you to select visitors from a certain time frame. So let's say you're a visitor host and you want to just catch up on all of the visitors. Maybe you do a once a month email for all visitors that have come in the last month, just to send them a quick thank you for visiting the chapter. Well, you can do that. Just select a date range. So let's say I want to email all visitors from the beginning of the month through today. I would then click Next. And it doesn't look like we have any that are entered in there for that period of time. So let me go back a little further. And this has all of the email addresses for those visitors. And the same thing as before, I can copy and paste those email addresses and send an email out. Now, if you're using the visitor database well, you can also go through and say, let's say I'm doing that stack day and I'd like to invite, accountants to the group, anybody in that accounting category or any of the categories. You can do that. All right, we have another question here. Trish asks, regarding adding visitors, does the visitor host enter them each of the 2 times they come or just the first time? My recommendation, Trish, is that they should only enter the visitors the first time that they show up to the meeting. When you enter them with their second visit, it actually will count towards the statistics, which may throw off your conversion ratios, and it will end up putting 2 records into the visitor database. So my recommendation is it's really keeping track of unique visitors. We also don't put in substitutes. It's just for visitors. At least that's my recommendation. So hopefully that helps. All right, there's other things that you can do in here. For example, if your chapter is using the goals program, there's an extensive goals program in BNI Connect that helps your chapters to grow. As a member, you'll be able to view the chapter goals. You probably won't see the enter chapter goals unless you are on the leadership team, but you could go in and view your chapter goals to see what your chapter goals are. But we actually do a webinar just on chapter goals, so I'd be happy to show you that at another time. Let's take a look at some of the reports in the system. And the reports are under, again, reports, and we're going to go to the chapter level reports. Now, there are a ton of reports in BNI Connect. You can see there's a whole list of them here. I think there's about 15 different reports at a chapter level. And I'm just going to go through some of my favorites today, although you are welcome to go into the system at any time. Just click through the reports and see what you can see. But again, here's some of my favorites. I'm going to hit about 4 or 5 of the reports here. Now, the first report on the list is a very helpful report, and that's the chapter roster report. Click Go, and it's a pretty straightforward report. It pretty much lists all your chapter members. Now, why I think this is a great report is that it also lists up at the top of the report all of the officers for your chapter. Now, why is this important? Let's say that you need to get in touch with your director, the director consultant in your chapter. Maybe you have a great idea for growing your chapter and you'd like to run it by your director, or you'd like to set up a regional event, or you'd like to find out when the next training is. Easy way to get their phone number, go into the chapter roster report. They'll be listed here, and you can get their phone number and their name in case you're not sure who they are. And the same thing for the rest of the positions in your chapter. So again, you'd like to spearhead running a visitor's day for your chapter, or a stack day, or just a special invitation day to your chapter, give a call to your growth coordinator. Your growth coordinators will be listed here in your roster report, and talk with them about it. Great idea for the chapter website. give your chapter webmaster a call. And again, you can just go in here and find those things. Now, just about all the reports in the system can be sorted in various ways. Anything that can be sorted, you can sort through, and you'll see that there's underlines under the names. So for example, I can't sort by phone here, but I can sort by company classification, first and last name. So this will list all of the members of your chapter. It'll list their classification, their company, their phone number, and a quick snapshot of the activity in the last 90 days. We have a couple of questions here. Let's see. Nathan says, how do I find different chapters? Now, by default, if you are a member of a chapter, you'll only have access to this information for your own chapter. There is some information that's also available on the public site, so on your regional website. For example, I'm in the Rhode Island region, so I'm in, that would be BNIRI.com, but your particular region will have its own domain name. So you can find some information on that public site. So he says, so not through Connect. Again, it still actually is through BNI Connect. It's just that there's a members-only portion and then there's a public portion. And it's really one and the same. It's still pulling the information from the system. It's just a public access to it. So not sure if that answers your question or not. If you are a director consultant that happens to be on the call or an ambassador, this drop-down would allow you to choose the other chapters that you have the access to those pieces of information for. But as a member, you would only have access to the one chapter. But if you stick around after the bottom of the hour, I can show you how to find that information on the public websites. All right. One of my other favorite reports on the system is this report right here. And this is really kind of one of those BFO reports, a very simple, BFO stands for Blinding Flash of the Obvious, but it's a very simple report. It's called the Meeting Notes Report. Now, what this report is good for is for taking notes at a meeting. If I click Go, this is very similar to the roster report. All it's going to do is give me the names of all the members, their company, and a place to keep notes. So you can just print this one out. All the reports can be printed in BNI Connect, and this will leave you a little space to write down notes. I mean, one of the easiest ways to increase your ability to give referrals is to, while you're at your chapter meeting, as people are giving their 60-second presentations or 45 seconds or however long your chapter might go, take down notes of what people are asking for. This will help to recall that information once you leave the room. Now, if you're an electronic person, or if this doesn't give you enough room to write, here's a great thing to do. See this button right here, Export Without Headers? Click that button. This will export this to an Excel spreadsheet. From here, you can do whatever you want to with the report. So let's say that you like to bring your iPad to the meeting instead. I happen to have a little Surface, Microsoft Surface, and I take these notes using my Surface to take notes right into Excel so I don't have to transfer it to a piece of paper later. You can also format this. For anybody that is good with Excel, you just click a couple of buttons. Let's say I want to format this as a table. And I can, let's say I want to make this bigger so I have more room to write notes in it. And then I can print it out however I'd like to, or just be able to take longer notes during the meeting electronically. You can also use this and print out 20, 30, 40 copies for your chapter to be able to take notes during the meeting. So again, that's the Meeting Notes Report. Again, I find that one to be extremely helpful, and it will help you to be able to produce more referrals at your weekly meeting. Now, the bread and butter of BNI is the PALMS report. PALMS stands for Present Absent Late Medical Substitute. Now, this is really the statistical history of your chapter, and you can pull this report for any period of time that you'd like to. So by default, it's going to show you the last full 6 months. So you can see this is going from February through the end of July for my chapter. But you can, again, change this to whatever you'd like. Let's say that you want to go back to the beginning of time for your chapter. Our chapter was formed somewhere in the 2001, I believe. So I'm going to go back to 2000. All the way through this month. And you can see that it pulls the figures for that entire period of time. So it'll show you all the presence, the absence, the late medical substitute. RGI, of course, stands for referrals given inside, which means that it was an in-chapter referral. I referred myself to somebody else in the chapter. So an inside Tier 1 referral. RGO, of course, is an outside referral, referral given outside, which means that I referred somebody outside of the chapter. So anybody other than myself, I referred to a member of the chapter. So a Tier 2 referral. Same thing for received, received inside, received outside. V is for visitors, the number of visitors that people brought, number of one-to-ones they had, as well as the thank you for closed business and CEUs, with nice totals at the bottom as well. So I can see in the lifetime of my chapter, we've done about $12 million, which is, I think, great. I don't think I've ever looked that up before. Now, if you'd like to just look at your personal history, you can look at the Personal POMS report. Now, I like this report because it's really kind of the same thing as the POMS report, but it just takes one person's name out of the POMS report and does it over that period of time. This is great for looking at your own personal history. So let's say I wanted to look up my own history here. So I choose my name from the list. I choose the month and year. So let's say I want to go back to 2004 through 2013, and I click Go. Now we'll see that it has. Our chapter actually didn't really start keeping track until about 2004 or 2005. But I can go through week by week and see what was submitted throughout my membership in BNI. And again, if I scroll down to the bottom, you'll see that you have totals down there as well. The final report that I'm going to show you today is the Member Details Report. Now, the Members Details Report is extremely helpful because you can look up other people's information. Now, you can always do this by clicking on their profile and taking a look at it. But what I like for this one is really the ability to be able to do a gains exchange. So how many people here remember back to your MSP program, your Member Success Program? One of the things that we're taught in Member Success is that before we do a one-to-one meeting, we should be doing a gains exchange. And gains stands for goals, accomplishments, interests, networks, and skills. And we should be filling out that piece of paper. And they used to tell us to fax it to the other person. Well, now we're in the electronic age, and it's a lot easier to do that now through BNI Connect. So let's say that I'm going to be doing a one-to-one with somebody else in my chapter. I can go to the Member Details Report and look up their gains profile. I would pick the member from my chapter. So let's say somebody was picking my profile, and click Go. And this will show you all of the gains information. So it shows you the goals, accomplishments, interests, networks, and skills. And from here, I can actually flip over to any of the other reports as well. So I can look at their bio. I can look at the tops. And I can look at the commercials. This will really help to increase the amount of business you can pass between each other because it opens up areas of conversation during that one-to-one that you may never have thought of before, just by looking at some of this information ahead of time before you sit down to that one-to-one with somebody. Of course, I can always export this information, or I can print it. And let's say I wanted to get this to the other person that maybe they don't use BNI Connect very well, or I wanted to bring it with me to this one-to-one. I could print it or even export it or print it to a PDF file and send that across. So those are my highlights of the member tools and reports functions here in BNI Connect. I hope you found something useful today. Now, I would like to open this up for questions, and I can also go back and answer Nathan's and Nick's questions as well. For those of you that do need to leave right away at the bottom of the hour, I do want to thank you for being here. I'd like to remind you that this webinar in its entirety, including any upcoming questions, is being recorded and will be made available on the support site by clicking on the question mark and also by going to youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. I'd also love it if you could go to facebook.com/BNI Connect Global. Please give us a like up here. We also do webinar announcements, reminders, tips and tricks, and all sorts of things up here on our BNI Connect Facebook page. And if you'd like reminders about upcoming emails, do a search for the Facebook group in BNI Connect as well. All right, so again, if you have any questions, I would love to take those at this time. If you can type them in, that would be great. So let me go back quick to Nathan had a question. He wanted to know how to find other chapters. Now, again, the easiest way to do that is through the regional website. So, for example, my website is bniri.com. Now, this is the public-facing website. There's some information on here that is customized to the region, but a lot of the stuff is pulled out of BNI Connect as necessary. So if I'd like to find other chapters, I can go to Find a Chapter, and I can look at all of the other chapters in my region. So I can look, let's say, at the Business Exchange chapter. Now I can see where they meet, and I can also see all of the members. So if I click on Show Members, it should show me all of the members in that chapter. And I can click through also and take a look at their profiles. Now let's say that there's somebody here that I'd like to connect with. Once I've found them, once I look for them, my suggestion is to go back into BNI Connect, and you can connect with them using the magnifying glass. So this person was Brian Goldstein. So here he is in the Business Exchange chapter, and then I can send him a connection request to add him to my personal network. So hopefully that helps, Nathan. Carol says, would you repeat the last bit regarding Facebook? Sure. I would love it if you could give us a like on Facebook, and the place to do that is facebook.com/BNI Connect Global. So facebook.com/BNI Connect Global. And again, we do tips and tricks and webinar reminders. For example, I did a webinar reminder about the webinar that you're on right now through Facebook, as well as through other places like the group that's here in BNI Connect as well. All right, Nick, you had a question as well. He said, just a reminder, this might be off topic. When I enter my one-to-ones, who reads them? And is that a tool for me to keep up with my meetings? So it's a little bit of both. When you enter a one-to-one, so if I go back to my home screen here, and I enter a one-to-one, what this does is this is pretty much, it's the same as passing a one-to-one slip at your meeting, except that it's done electronically. What happens after you've entered this is that it will go into your My One-to-One report. Now this is helpful because you can go and review all of your one-to-ones that you've had over the past, however long you've been keeping track of one-to-ones. it also automatically gets entered into the POMS report for the vice president. So the vice president ends up not having to accept that piece of paper and then manually tabulate it later. They can just, it automatically gets entered into that POMS report for them. So other than that, nobody's really reading it per se. And the only people that would see that one-to-one are you and the person you had a one-to-one with in their My One-to-One report. Trish said, this one-to-one is only submitted by the originator or do both? Trish, it actually doesn't matter who enters the one-to-one. Only one person needs to enter the one-to-one, though. So whoever decides to enter it, that's great. If the second person enters the one-to-one and it's entered for the same day with the same person, it will send up a warning saying, no, I'm sorry, this one-to-one has already been entered. You don't need to enter it again. And they can choose to cancel out at that point. So Nick and Trish, that answers your questions, I believe. Drew says, can you actually send a chapter email from Connect, or is it simply an area to get the member list? Drew, right now that particular function is only a way to get the current member list. The emails are sent from your own system. Now, there is one more way to send emails through BNI Connect. There's an internal messaging system, similar to like the LinkedIn messaging system, the InMail system. BNI Connect has one of those as well. It's this little icon up here in the corner with the mail icon. And you can compose a message to any of your connections. Now, by default, you're automatically connected to your whole chapter, but as that grows, as you connect with other people in BNI worldwide, you can also send messages to all of those people. You know, at this point, the reason I don't normally recommend this is it's great when you're first in BNI because you only may have connections to your chapter, but for example, I have, I think about 300 or 400 connections. To pick my chapter members out from this list would be a little bit cumbersome. So I tend to use that other messaging system. I just grab the email addresses and send out my own email. So does that help, Drew? All right. Do we have any other questions, again, about the tools and the reports or anything else? I would be absolutely thrilled to answer any questions that you have about BNI Connect at this time. So Nick says, I'm unable to get to the chapter list on my operations tab. Is that mostly for membership leadership teams? BNI Connect is set up so that your region can decide which functions are available to which users in the system. Most of the time, if as a chapter member, you should be able to get to operations chapter and at least have this create email option. Now, if you don't have any of these options, the thing to do is to please talk to your director consultant or your executive director and either let them know that you learned about these tools and you'd like to have access to them, or maybe they'll tell you why that they're not available in your particular region. But again, that's at the discretion of your executive director. So. All right, Carol says, I cannot RSVP on the events tab. Are you talking about if I go to my network and I go to any of these events, there should be a register button here. The only time the register button is not there usually is if you've already registered for that particular event. If it's something other than that, do me a favor, if you can send an email to support@bniconnect.com, and we will work through that issue with you. When I hit register, it does nothing. Okay. Carol says, I did contact them. I think I might have seen a support ticket on this a couple of hours ago today, so let me take a look at that. I'll do that offline, and I will be happy to work through that one with you on a one-to-one basis. Let's see, we have one other one. Trish Koff says, off-topic question, how do I see the automated reminder emails that are sent when my members register for events? So, Trish, are you asking where you go to change those or where you go to update those? Trish, if you go to the support site, so click on the question mark here in BNI Connect, go to the support site. Now, as an executive director, you should see a directors only section in the support site here. But you can just also do a search for templates. Once you find the templates, one of these should say System Email Templates Full Set. You can download the full set of templates here, and there's also a guide for how to upload the templates and how to view them and all that type of thing up there within this help topic. And I can also, I'm going to paste that for you right here in, okay, so I just sent you the link for that as well. Cool. Do we have any other questions, comments, concerns? All right. Well, again, I thank you all for being here today. Hopefully you learned a few good things in the system. Our next webinar is going to be specifically on the online slips and referral tracking, and that's going to be on August 19th, which is this coming Monday. It will be at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern, 11 o'clock Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. If you thought today's webinar was good, a good referral for me would be to please go back to your chapters, go back to your regions, and let them know about these webinars. I would love to get all of the knowledge out of my head and into everybody else's. So again, thank you for being here today, and I look forward to seeing you on a future webinar. If you have any questions, please do send them to support@bniconnect.com. Have a great day, everybody, and happy connecting.